Okay. All right. So Q&A. I'm going to try to do these at least once every 2 weeks. If we can get it up to once every week, that would be good. Starting in May, I think we'll be able to, because Eli will be in daycare full time, so that'll be good. So let's talk about your questions. So a couple of people who couldn't make it live posted some stuff, and I see that some of you had the similar questions, and we'll go with those first. As I expected, the first question for the call today, here is the question. I know it's all speculation, but any thoughts, ideas on where the bottom might be with this bear run? I mean, all right, so let me answer this as best as I can. And obviously, none of this is financial advice. So I can tell you what I do, but that doesn't mean you should do that. So this sounds kind of obnoxious when someone says this, when it's clearly the market has been going down. I'm not denying that, but I don't believe in bear markets and I don't believe in bull markets. I believe that what we see reflected in price is the culmination and the fruit of many different factors, some of which are fundamentals, which, we're really fond of in Cryptosync and myself in general. It's how I pretty much, have the confidence to make most of my trades, or investments, I should say. Trading, well, we can talk about a little bit that differently. So I don't really believe in that. I think it's about having a plan for, taking action, or having a plan to take action, or just maybe even monitoring paper trading, regardless of what happens. So like when I give Bitcoin buy levels, like I have a lot of my friends who text me, who I eventually cajole into joining the server, because I'm like, listen, I'm posting stuff there. Like, if I'm making other people, tune into there, you need to too. So it's fun to be my friend sometimes, I'm sure. But more importantly, like I put the buying levels for Bitcoin in there because that's what I'm doing. And I'm doing it as much for myself as for anyone else. Like you shouldn't necessarily follow every single thing that I'm saying in buying Bitcoin. But let's see, I went back to my levels. I know I had one at 7,600 and the next one was 6,100. So for me, we've been hovering in that range for a while now, it feels like. So I bought some. That seems to be a comfortable range where we are. If we go down, the next level I had was 5,600. If we hover between that and something else, I'll probably buy a little bit more. I'm not buying a whole Bitcoin here. I could, I guess, if I had a bigger bankroll and I had more confidence in the direction. So, or going down 4,200, 3,300. I don't think those are really going to happen, but they could. So I don't want to be taken by surprise if that ends up happening. No one can call the bottom, but a better question is, or maybe some people can, but I don't know any of them who I would trust implicitly. Otherwise, we'd all do that. But I think it's important to ask yourself, I'm going to mute you. Hold on. I'm going to mute you. Basically, why are you trying to catch the exact bottom, I guess is the question. Or why do you want to know? Because you want to buy it and then it goes only up from there? I think if that's your goal in this market, it's not my approach. I don't try to buy things and immediately only have to have them go up, especially if it's Bitcoin. I do that for day trading amounts, but again, that's a fraction of my total investment with this stuff. So I think you could confidently buy Bitcoin under $10,000, and in 2 years, you'll be like, wow, I can't believe it was ever under $10,000. There's, it's the mining difficulty is going to double, and there's a lot of factors fundamentally, awareness, this market will probably be much healthier. So if you're looking at it like that, like it's kind of like when I was telling people in the bull run, if we want to believe in bull runs, right? When the market was trending up, I guess we could look back and call it a bull run. It didn't really matter the exact price of what you were buying Ether or Bitcoin or Litecoin at, because you just wanted to enter the market and get into an altcoin that had solid fundamentals that seemed like it was continuing to go up based on those fundamentals, or just like it was a solid investment. So you don't want to get too caught up in the exact bottom. Obviously, everyone, if you're feeling like emotionally attached or just in any way psychologically attached to the price, you've probably invested, if you've already invested, you probably invested a little more than you thought was comfortable. You probably thought it was comfortable at the time when it was going up, and then when it was going down, it doesn't feel so comfortable. So that's an important thing to take note of. But otherwise, if you're trying to catch the exact bottom to enter the market, I wouldn't freak out about it. No one has the answers. There's people I follow on Twitter. I take it with a grain of salt most of the time. I look at results from people who I think are doing something good. More importantly, I will say this. I don't know if this is wise, but it seems to be, it's a priority for me. I don't really like to follow assholes on Twitter. I don't like to follow anyone who's just seems like they don't know, how to be nice to other people on a basic level, even on social media. They may be really good at trading. I'm sure there are tons of people all over the place who are great at trading and they're just not nice people. It's not worth it for me. I don't think there's we have to be so perfect in the top 1% of 1% to nail this. So that's my roundabout question of saying, I don't know what the bottom is. Who knows? But I'm prepared basically all the way down to 3,000, which I think is very unlikely. Does seem like we keep testing the 6,000, 6,600, 65, somewhere in this range. Seems like it's supporting pretty well, but it could easily go down. There's been a lot of reports of firms over the counter dealing massive amounts of Bitcoin and the price isn't plunging and it's not surging tremendously. I think it's absorbing quite a bit, the Mt. Gox stuff. So I'm not in terms of the broad outlook of crypto, I'm not concerned at all. That's why I don't think it's so important to try to catch the bottom on this, buy it if you think it's a good deal. Base your good deal probably not on what's going to happen in tomorrow or in a week or in a month, maybe in 3 months, maybe in a year, maybe in 2 years. And if you do that and relax, it'll be good. I was debating whether, the hold mentality, the philosophy, first of all, I don't think it's really a philosophy. I think for people who've had Bitcoin, the longer you've held it, the more you've made. That's all it is. And there was the meme where someone was drunk and, was saying that they were going to hold everything. So, okay. Next question. Question for the call. Is there a reason to use a coin's wallet on your computer to store that coin? Security versus keeping it on the exchange? Are there other reasons to download and use a coin-specific wallet? Well, it's a good question. Depends on the coin, obviously. If there's some proof of stake or master nodes or something you can do that you have your computer open, that's super, important to know. I would probably try to run something like that, though, on a VPS. That's pretty easy to do. Vulture is one that I've been using. And it's pretty, that's because you're going to want it on all the time if it's proof of stake. Outside of that, if it's just a regular coin, non-staking, no extra benefit for having it off the exchange. Depends what you're doing. If you kind of want it in not really cold storage, but you're not really going to trade it because of the hassle to move it, I like the computer wallet, the desktop wallet. Make sure you have your private keys and all the information backed up and everything. But outside of that, you can keep it on an exchange. I find people who keep money on exchanges who look at the price regularly, which it can be fun to do or not fun to do, are more liable to spend and trade and move that. So that might be a reason to keep it offline, not offline, but not off exchange rather. The other thing for security reasons, exchanges, you don't own your private keys. That's not a big, scary thing that a lot of people make you think. Could be. That's true. You don't own that because you don't know the exact private keys, but if you would be compensated with the same thing if it was a reputable exchange, it's really not that different. But again, it's a centralized entity, and a lot of people think that it should be all decentralized all of the time. Obviously, as a VE chain investor, I agree with a lot of principles of decentralization, but I also, much like Alexander Hamilton, am somewhat wary of mob rule, mob mentality that can happen, not always, but can happen in those type of paradigms. And I do believe there are people sometimes who maybe, for instance, here's a good example. I think given enough time, I could learn how to fly a plane, but I don't think a group of people who think we know how to potentially fly a plane we would want any of us flying a plane or as a group flying a plane. The pilot who has learned and done all the things relevant to those things maybe should fly the plane. Doesn't mean we're going to have a aristocratic society of elites. It just means this person maybe is suited for this because they put in the time to study it. So I do think there are, and this is a broader question that I've kind of branched off to, centralization versus decentralization. But reputable exchange, something like Binance, I think you're probably safe. If you're, remember, you're in charge of all the information. But other than that, I think you're fine. Next question. Thoughts on any decoupling of LTC or ETH in the near future? Also would be curious what TA indicators do you favor, though you are more of a fundamentalist guy, as you said before. Yeah. Decoupling, do you mean Litecoin and Ether from Bitcoin? Is that the question? You're here. You can respond to that. Yeah, I mean, decoupling, I don't believe in such a thing. I'd look at it like this. I'd look at it like human beings trying to say we're not part of the earth. I'm listening to the Black Elk thing, so I'm on this little trip here. But it, Litecoin and Ether are still, as I see it, part of Bitcoin's ecosystem. That is the creator, for lack of a better word, at this point. Yes, I think eventually the market will deviate a bit, but there's a reason Bitcoin is still viewed at the best as the best. It's not a coincidence. It's not just because more people know about it. It's survived really insane things. And I think in terms of decoupling, you're going to need to see something that transcends the pure blockchain value that the currency provides, which is, let's be clear, Ethereum is a currency right now. It is also a platform. There's so many different things you can do with the smart contracts, but it's a currency right now like any other. Same with Litecoin. And Litecoin is just a fork of Bitcoin, which is faster in a way, but I'm not a huge Litecoin fan anyway. So I don't necessarily see that those two currencies, cryptocurrencies, are superior to Bitcoin. So I don't see them decoupling anytime soon. Now you could say, well, what about VE Chain? Yeah, I think that's probably a candidate at some point, but I don't think it's going to overtake Bitcoin. I don't think the awareness of it is going to overtake Bitcoin. Even if it does, I don't think it's going to completely pass it. So I don't know about decoupling. I don't necessarily believe that. I will say this: most of the currencies that I see out there, and coins and tokens and whatever they're trying to solve, I don't think they're going to be successful. I don't think the majority of these things will be. I'm not saying that it could be 49%, but I don't think the majority of them are. So in terms of decoupling, recognize they're kind of just in Bitcoin's ecosystem. Now, this gets a little trickier if you're looking at like smaller cap coins and things that are trading in like, single Satoshi values or tens or hundreds even, because when Bitcoin takes a plummet, like it can only bleed so much. So you could say, well, these things are somewhat decoupled because of their low price. So there are dynamics in individual cases where it's a little bit different. And you could say, well, they look like they're decoupled. Then was a really good example of this. VE Chain in December and even January when it kept going up. Started at $2 in January, still up from the beginning of January 1, which is, it probably doesn't feel like that for most people here because we've been buying it from before then, but that is true. It was decoupled. You were gaining tremendous amounts of Bitcoin value while Bitcoin was going up, which was really pretty cool. So things decouple and uncouple because of price. But again, I'd look at price like the last thing we're seeing as the value of something. Okay, let me point out something to dovetail into this VE Chain thing, because I know there's probably some questions here, even if they're not expressed, which is what's going on with VE Chain, right? Price is plummeting not only with Bitcoin in terms of dollar value, but also Satoshi value, which was not the case before. So a lot of people are freaking out. Here's my personal theory on what's going on, and I think some of the Block Explorer will back this up. A lot of long-term investors in VE Chain bought Bitcoin at a much higher price. Let's be clear about this. Not everyone was buying this stuff before December of last year. It stayed in the same price range for a really long time, since its inception. So what I'm trying to point out here is a lot of people locked up nodes, X nodes, especially once they released that and did the snapshot, at prices that are higher than now, significantly higher. So what's left in the exchange, something like Binance or even KuCoin or any of these other ones? What's left there to dictate price? People who are not early investors, people who didn't set the value on what they think it is. So the level of support is probably a lot higher than what the price indicates now, which is why I do have added VE Chain back to my trading portfolio. So my point is there's a lot of short-term traders, there's a lot of dynamics going on that aren't really giving you necessarily an accurate gauge of price. I'm not saying VE Chain is guaranteed to be Amazon or any of the big tech stocks that survived the dot-com bust, boom and bust. But if you were selling Amazon at $9 after it was at $30 because it lost 2/3 of its value, you're probably kicking yourself if whether the person who forgot they had Amazon stock because their grandma gave it to them or something for a gift or whatever it was, and then all of a sudden it's worth a lot more. So it's really important to zoom out for a lot of these things and understand, why you're entering and how long you want to hold it. If you're a real active trader, like I am an active trader, less and less, as the market moves sideways or down, however you want to call it, I still, trade actively. It's important to pay attention to some specific things that are going on. But overall, if you just zoomed out and held these things that are really good projects, the good ones, which we try to identify, you're going to be just fine. Now, in terms of TA indicators, which was your second question, I really have started zooming out. Just like I've been saying, I look at the daily, I look at the 4 hour if I'm looking to enter a trade on a specific price, but I also just kind of pay attention. I have the app open on my phone. If I'm on Binance, I'll look at prices. I'll kind of see if they're in the same range that I'm accustomed to. I'll see where they are in relation to Bitcoin. And if I see there's an opportunity, for instance, metal. I don't know what metal is doing right at this point, but I really like metal. It's a processing card. Centra, do we see Centra finally delisted from, is it delisted from Bitcoin? From Binance. It's a scam. Their SEC busted the Centra people. It was this card that was supposed to be like a physical card that was partnered with MasterCard that you could do all these things with, and just total lies. They had people like Floyd Mayweather, DJ Khaled, all these other people promoting it, and just totally bogus. So they got busted, and that coin was pumping crazy. It was up to like 200%. After it had plummeted, which is just, it's just insanity. So things like that are not particularly encouraging for the crypto market. People must look at that who are on the sidelines waiting to invest and be like, what the hell is going on? But there's probably a reason for it. We don't know what it is. I don't really care to invest in something that's an outright scam. Do what you want. Metal, though, my point is that it's a competitor. It's like the anti-Centra. They actually have a real working product in the platform that they're launching, and it's good. I recommend anyone look into that. But it was at a price that I look to be at now. If Bitcoin plummets another $700,000, it's going to drop well below where I bought it, and that's an inherent risk I want to point out in something like this. However, if the market ever gets back to this price, which I'm pretty confident this isn't the end of Bitcoin, maybe a few months, who knows, but I don't really think this is the end of Bitcoin. This is a price that I know to be a pretty good entry, for a platform and something that's launching and has a lot of things on the horizon in 2018. So stuff like that. In terms of, TA, I'm more looking at not necessarily volume, but the overall buy sold, the RSI a little bit. But really the main thing I've been looking at in terms of TA is zooming out. Just to get a sense of where things are. I look at the daily to see if there's something I want to get into. That also gives me a little bit more patience when looking at results. I'm not maybe going to freak out about it moving within a day or two, unless it's plummeting hard. And then you could do a stop loss if you want, or cut bait manually. I don't pay any attention to Elliott waves, just to be clear. I don't pay any attention to I pay some attention to Fibonacci sequences because they're everywhere, but I don't think it's like a necessity, really. And in volatile markets like this, it may blow through plenty of those or down. And it's just, you got to be careful about relying on any of those. Also, I don't read the books. I don't study this stuff. I'm an amateur with the TA, so I don't really get too caught up in my own perspectives there. I do have more confidence in my fundamental analysis ability in this space. So that's something I rely on a lot more. Again, day trading amount, like a small percentage of what you're using. Not like the teeniest, but I don't think people should be making a huge gamble on something that they don't know. I really do look at like the more solid holdings I have, VE Chain, Bitcoin, Raven, GVT, at a better price. I've been selling on the way down. But basically looking at these things for, I want these for a year. I want these for 6 months. I want these for long enough for them to bear fruit because I like the fundamentals of them. Obviously, everything is, eligible to change, but there's a somewhat patient timeline on a lot of these things. And then dollars too, right? Like I started putting in fiat. I thought this is a decent enough entry. I'm also like, again, if you're buying a full Bitcoin, let's say at $6,700, right around where it is right now, and it goes down $1,200. If you don't sell, if it goes down $2,000, just look at it like Bitcoin. You still have the same amount of Bitcoin. If Bitcoin goes up, from that point, you'll be okay. I like to have a Bitcoin goal. A lot of people had a goal of 0.1 Bitcoin, which was seeming like quite a bit of money when Bitcoin was $20,000 for a lot of people. people really view that as an outline goal. Now it's a lot cheaper to get that. You get that for under $1,000. Get $670. You have 0.1. So just have a goal and recognize Bitcoin is Bitcoin. One Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin. Obviously, that comes tongue in cheek with there's going to be a dollar value pegged to it. I do maintain we're still trading in Satoshi until we don't trade in Satoshis exclusively. Just assume that I believe in the future, Bitcoin will be worth more than it is now. So if we believe that, just try to get the amount you want. A lot of early investors, people now who are tuning in, I think having a really solid idea of how much Bitcoin you want, I think you should always hold some Bitcoin, just to be clear. It's important, I think, just as a psychological exercise, just so you can see what's going on. I don't really look at a ton of TA stuff anymore. There are some people I follow on Twitter, which you can check out. But outside of that, I don't get too caught up in it. This is just about having skin in the game, doing well if you can. I think BNB has been a real winner for the past 2 weeks, at least in terms of stability and Satoshi value and dollar value, truthfully. Just playing it cool, doing what you can. And when you have money from whatever your day job is or however you earn money, whatever it is, have levels. If you think this is a space to be involved with in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, then yeah, I think this is on the lower end of the spectrum of what Bitcoin will be worth within 5 years, for sure. Okay. Any other questions? I see you guys in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if there's not any other questions, I don't think I had anything else planned. But if there is another question, Howard, I see you typing. Type in. I got to figure out how to get music. I got to get a new computer, number one. Not because this one's bad. I love this computer. But I need a nicer computer. I'm going to get some real, I think, production doing with these things. Any ideas on how Thor and how that will play out in terms of price? Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. I don't think Thor is going to be worth that much. I think a really optimistic price of Thor would be like 50 cents. I don't think it should be much higher if you consider the amount of transactions it's theoretically going to be processing. So I wouldn't shoot too high. That may even be high. Could be like 10 cents or even lower. More importantly, I'm interested to see how the rollout works, how it's received, how VeChain adapts to any unforeseen issues or otherwise. I'm just, I'm curious to see how the ecosystem rolls out. I don't know. It's like pure speculation in terms of Thor. Everyone's seen the guide where if Thor goes to like $25, $50, you're like super rich. That's possible. I would not anticipate that anytime soon. I think if you're really going to be making, wealth in terms of dollars or Bitcoin, you're probably going to see that value reflected in the VeChain, the VET token, more so than Thor. Is $10 realistic, you're asking, to expect when the system matures? I don't know. It really depends. Like, you'd have to factor in how many businesses are using it, what they're using it for on the blockchain. So like a cigarette company, for instance, with more transactions would need far more Thor, theoretically, to power all of that. Now, would that be priced the same as something that, say, uses far less transactions, either in terms of a supply chain or otherwise, like a media corporation? I don't know. I'm sure there'll be they will be adapting. And the other important thing, that I think a lot of people overlook with the X nodes, because everyone just sees the Thor generation, is there's a governance model here and a community governance model. So a lot of this stuff isn't like, hey, the roadmap is we're definitely doing this and this is how it's going to work. Expect this price. It's like, this is going to be a fluid situation. I think what VeChain has going for it is its placement, its partnerships. It seems like pretty good foresight in terms of being collaborative with other projects and real world companies. Those are the things that make me confident for it. In terms of the actual economic model, listen, the nodes as time goes on become economically unfeasible. It's not going to happen probably within the first few years, but that will have to be changed too. So like just recognize that, what you're getting in at is less about how much passive income you'd be generating this year or maybe even next year, but that you're in so early that you will have an active part and hand and benefit as much as anyone pretty much from the changes that happen if it succeeds. That's really what the bet is. The passive income is also like, a wonderful, real thing that will happen. If Thor does gain independent value, let's say it goes up to $3 and you're generating, 20, 30 Thor a day, that's nothing to sneeze at. That's that's a good job. So the thing is that you have to remember that there's a lot of different factors with VE chain. Thor is just one of them. But I do think people early on will probably be rewarded if it's going well. So yes, that's that. Any other questions? No problem, Howard. Got you. That's it. Call it a wrap. But yeah, I'm generally incredibly positive. I look at this like an opportunity with Bitcoin this low, truthfully. If it goes lower, great, better. I would feel like an asshole, truthfully, if I didn't have a lot invested and have it lose a significant portion of it. The stuff that I'm holding, the V chain offsite, has lost a lot of value. So, and I'm not freaking out. It'd be one thing if I'm just sitting here with no skin in the game, just yeah, guys, no problem. But I'm not freaking out, not because I'm delusional, but because I know why I invested in this stuff. I know it's a lot harder if you kicked in dollars that you theoretically could imagine yourself doing something else with. But even then, just remember you probably invested for a reason. Try to remember what that reason is. Also, go back to some earlier talks here. I've taken huge losses in trades to move into things that I thought were good opportunities. And if you find yourself out of tune with the market and you're just going into bad thing after bad thing, that's an opportunity too. Don't go, you'll learn some lessons there, obviously. So yeah, I don't view it as a time to get freaked out. I will absolutely be the first one to tell everyone when I'm freaked out. I don't know what the fuck is going on. There have definitely been some bumps in the road down from 19,000 to here, but I don't think it's been a totally oh my God, what's going on? This stuff was $1,000 15 months ago, Bitcoin. Go look at the market caps of the coins if you want to freak yourself out. But also the other thing that we haven't mentioned is the stock markets and everything. I mean, everyone's talking about how Bitcoin is super volatile. The stock market, Dow Jones at least, is totally spastic. Goes down a ton, goes up a ton. I mean, just imagine what we're seeing, with Bitcoin. And that's the other thing with Bitcoin. I hope people don't BitMEX on this server, but if you do, that's where you can long or short Bitcoin. I don't gamble on the price of Bitcoin. I buy it at a price I look at, and I kick it somewhere where I'm not going to touch it, or I'm going to actively trade for something else I wanted. Don't gamble on the price of Bitcoin. You're going to get squeezed out by people who have more money than you and know what they're doing better than you. Don't try to short and long Bitcoin in tight ranges. It's super choppy. That's what happens. When you see the price today, it shot up to $7,000, rose $400 really quickly. That's all that is. Someone's squeezing out all these shorts and longs and other things. All the bots are tied together across all the exchanges. People are just getting stopped out, liquidated, margin trading. Don't do it, really, unless you know exactly what you're doing or super low leverage. We'll have a talk on that. I don't do BitMEX. I've been on there and I've used their platform. I just have no interest. Probably, who knows? Could have done well. Not interested. Okay. Let's put it, I'll end it there on the BitMEX thing. All right. Clippy.